Knowing which are the very best choices to make so that you don't have to slowly stop living before you die can be super confusing. That confusion can be overwhelming and annoying and keep us from creating the future that we want. Or we can choose to use it to create an even better future than we realized was even possible. Which way would you rather use confusion? You're listening to the Health Courage Collective podcast, episode 180, Use Confusion to Age Better. Welcome to the Health Courage Collective podcast, the show for women who are too busy to slog through hours of generalized, inapplicable, and often contradictory health information, but too smart to ignore that a few minutes of focused attention now can prevent years of suffering in the future. I'm your host, Christina Hackett, a pharmacist who doesn't want you to live on prescriptions, a certified coach specifically trained to maximize your potential, and a compulsive learner obsessed with preventative, cutting-edge, holistic, and integrative medicine. I'm on a mission to increase your physical and mental resilience so you can fearlessly look forward to your next 40-plus limitless years. Your time is now. Let's go. Hi, my friend, and welcome to another episode. I'm so happy to spend a few minutes with you today. I hope you're feeling like you're crushing life and that you had a good week this past week. Did you go on a passeggiata? How did it feel? It's good for your body and your mind. So even though it's only been a week since that episode was published, it's been about 6 weeks since I started using my continuous glucose monitor, and it's been pretty eye-opening for me. That's why I've wanted to get one for so long, but even then, I think I didn't really expect to be so surprised and intrigued and sometimes a little worried by what I had learned about my metabolic health. And walking after a meal does make a huge difference. It's not small. I've heard it before, but actually seeing it in the numbers, there's just something different about it. It really does matter. And moving around more in general all day long matters a lot too. I knew that intellectually, but just seeing it in those numbers all day long, after meals, and even when I'm asleep. No wonder sitting is the new smoking. It affects every area of your metabolic health. So just 3 weeks ago, we talked about how to use a traditionally thought of negative emotion to age better. We're going to do that again today. Pretty soon, there will be no emotions that won't make your life better. 3 weeks ago, we talked about envy. Today, we're going to talk about confusion. One of the things that smart, forward-thinking women who want to do the right things to age well complain to me about is that it's so confusing. I totally get it. There's all kinds of contradictory advice and even worse, contradictory scientific evidence. Carbs are bad. Actually, they're not. Statins are good. Actually, they're not. High-intensity exercise is the way to go. Actually, slow and steady is better. Calories in and calories out is king. Actually, a calorie is not a calorie. We all need to live with the natural decline in our hormones. Hormone replacement therapy is magic. Hormones cause cancer. Hormones prevent cancer. Plant-based diets are good. Plant-based diets cause sarcopenia and fatigue. I'm sure we could all go on and on and on with endless examples for the rest of the day. Finding a way to get chronologically older more quickly than you're getting physiologically older can feel confusing for sure. And confusion doesn't feel good, especially when it encompasses several categories in a topic that really matters to you, like not having to stop living before you die. Being 100% certain about what to do and how to do it feels a lot better. You can find plenty of people who are 100% certain that their philosophy is the best way to live for everyone on the earth. Carnivores, vegans, anti-vaxxers, pro-vaxxers. I don't know if that's a term, but you know what I mean. While there are lots of things we do know for sure, it's still confusing and complex. Luckily, feeling confused along the way can actually be an asset rather than a liability, a way to create a better plan and a better future than if we never had to claw our way through confusion along the way. So let's go through 6 ways to use confusion to our advantage as we age at an elite level. The first is to see tolerating not knowing as an act of courage. In her book, Atlas of the Heart, Brené Brown says that confusion is an epistemic emotion. In case, like me, you don't know what epistemic is, it means relating to knowledge or degree of validation. So confusion is a critical part of learning. Brené says that research shows that confusion has the potential to motivate, lead to deep learning, and to trigger problem solving. One response we can choose to have to confusion is to stop and think, engage in careful deliberation, and develop a solution that revises how we will approach the next problem that comes our way. Because confusion is uncomfortable, another response we can choose to have to confusion is to dismiss any new data that challenges our current understanding in order to avoid being uncomfortable. Plenty of people do that. Tons of people think that using any traditional medicine irrevocably screws up your body and can very skillfully ignore all evidence showing that that's not true for a ton of different reasons. And tons of people think that using any alternative medicine is a waste of time and money and can very skillfully ignore all evidence showing that that's not true for a ton of different reasons. Confusion is uncomfortable, so it's easier to believe someone loudly making a case for one side or the other than to do what Brené said and stop and think, engage in careful deliberation, and consider how we want to approach the ambiguity. Plus, if we're getting our information online, the AI algorithms feed us more and more of whatever we're willing to keep consuming. So it makes it seem to us as if there is more evidence and more supporters for one side versus the other, when that's not actually a reflection of reality. It's so tricky. Not to mention that outrage is the most effective clickbait in the world. Brené points out that it takes courage to stop and rethink, engage in careful deliberation, and revise our thinking. That's true. It's a little funny to me to think of choosing to stay in confusion and tolerate the discomfort of not knowing as an act of valor, but it really is. It is courageous. Refusing to give in to the temptation of jumping to a conclusion or dismissing something that challenges your current opinion so that you don't have to be confused anymore is brave. Deliberately trying to understand a point of view that you don't agree with is an act of valor, and it makes you so much smarter and indeceivable. I don't think that's a word either, but I'd love for you to be indeceivable. Richard the Lionheart, Alexander the Great, Suleiman the Magnificent, and Christina the Confused. See? Brave. The second way to use confusion to our advantage is to see the difficulty of learning as desirable. We know that if we want to increase the amount of weight we can lift, or the speed we can swim, or the distance we can throw, our muscles are going to burn and it's going to be difficult at first. In my high-intensity interval exercise class that I go to on Wednesday mornings, we had a coach in training practicing on us as our coach for half of the workout the other day, and I was just doing my whatever I was doing on the TRX, I don't remember, and he stopped by me and said, "Don't forget to suffer." I thought that was pretty funny. I do look forward to suffering through some training sessions, so there's my advice to you about confusion. Don't forget to suffer. Look forward to it. Reaching beyond our current abilities is a tough thing to do, but that difficulty is desirable because it's the very thing that's going to get us where we want to be. The same thing is true when we're learning. Comfortable learning environments rarely lead to deep learning. We talked a little bit about this in a past episode, but I don't remember which one anymore. But Adam Grant, in his book, Think Again, talks about learning styles and how adapting everything to a student's preferred learning style actually does them a disservice because it robs them of the discomfort required to learn something well. Being willing to tolerate the discomfort of confusion can help you to learn something better. We internalize our hard-fought knowledge more than information that is spoon-fed to us. The best learning strategies to help resolve confusion are seeking help from others, finding out which information is most important, monitoring your progress, and planning a strategy for learning. I think curiosity goes a long way too here. Being curious about what you might discover as a result of this confusion. Too much confusion can cause us to disengage, but just enough can spark a fire to learn. This sweet spot has a name, and Brené Brown said that if she were ever to start a punk band, she would name it after it. The Zone of Optimal Confusion. That's an uncomfortable but optimal place to be, the Zone of Optimal Confusion. That's really what it's called. It's a place that can help you figure out how calories in, calories out doesn't matter, but that calories simultaneously matter a lot, and what that means specifically for you. how walking is the best form of movement that you for sure need to do regularly, but how it's also not enough if you want to age at an elite level. How to get comfortable with hunger and know that you will be hungry sometimes, but still love your body and honor its signals and never starve yourself or punish yourself. How to decide whether hormone replacement therapy aligns with your plan for aging and what you believe to be true for yourself. What traditional medicine has to offer you for your specific situation, and what will happen if you choose a different path. What are the risks? What are the benefits? Which ones outweigh the others? It's confusing, and that's good. Third, use confusion to help you more mindfully create new options for yourself. While living without confusion is generally more pleasurable, sometimes choosing the absence of confusion is actually choosing mindlessness. Seeing only the categories we already know exist, doing what we've always done, and seeing everything from a single perspective. Living on autopilot can be awesome in a lot of ways. We can do a litany of very complex and even dangerous tasks all day without being mentally drained at all if they're all on autopilot. We can shower, brush our teeth, tie our shoes, apply a series of pigments to our face that could very easily make us look like clowns, hurl ourselves around at 75 miles per hour in a crushable metal box with wheels, insert catheters into people's veins, and understand numbers in a complicated spreadsheet, all without much mental effort at all because we do it all the time. But if we only ever see what we already know about and do things the way we've always done them, we're missing out on the opportunity to level up that comes with being willing to be confused about some things some of the time. Confusion can help us to be more mindful about what we learn, what we understand, and what we do. My favorite researcher, who I talk about all the time, Ellen Langer, says that a mindful approach to learning has 3 characteristics. 1, continuous creation of new categories. 2, openness to new information. And 3, implicit awareness of more than one perspective. Mindfulness and a mindful approach to learning require you to live and act in a state of greater uncertainty than if you were mindless, which can feel like a loss of personal control. A loss of personal control sounds terrible to me, but then she says that uncertainty is the very thing that creates the freedom to discover meaning. If there are meaningful choices, there's uncertainty. If there's no choice, there's no uncertainty and no opportunity for control. Therefore, uncertainty and the experience of personal control are inseparable. I love that. Confusion is born out of uncertainty, but uncertainty about something means there is an opportunity for you to use openness to new information and your awareness of more than one perspective to use your personal control to make meaningful choices. When we mindfully embrace confusion, we know that there is no absolute optimal standard for action. We know there's no such thing as making one right choice from the available options. Making the single right choice feels desirable to me. These are the 7 choices, and I chose the best one. Neener, I win. But when we're mindful in confusing circumstances, we create the ability to generate options for ourselves. The question goes from, this is so overwhelming, which of these choices is the best, to, given this new information and these varying perspectives, how do I create the option that will give me the outcome that I want? I love it. You go from just trying not to make a mistake by choosing the wrong option to creating opportunities that didn't even exist before. Pretty cool. But it only happens if you're willing to sit with the discomfort of confusion for a while. Being open to new information and willing to see things from a different perspective creates magic. Fourth, use confusion to remind you to refuse binary choices. A lot of times our confusion might be about how to decide between 2 alternatives. Uber successful hedge fund manager Ray Dalio says that whenever you're faced with an either-or decision, slow down, step back, and think harder about how you can have both things. In other words, be willing to stay in confusion for longer. This is why he's so mind-blowingly financially successful. He stayed in his confusion about whether to choose high investment returns or low risk. He wanted both. I mean, don't we all? He figured out how because he refused to make an either-or choice. If you're confused about an either-or choice, maybe you can use confusion to your advantage. Stay there a little bit longer. Step back. Do some journaling, get some coaching, stay with the riddle and see what you can do to have as much of both as possible. What do you feel you need to choose between? Maybe you don't. Maybe you can have your cake and eat it too. I always thought that was kind of a dumb saying because who wants to just possess cake? Weird. But my whole goal in working with you as a client is to make it so that you only do all the things you love and enjoy doing most, but that those things are also the things that are best for your physiology. It's possible. I think it's the holy grail of aging at an elite level, and we can get you there. Send me a message at healthcouragecollective.com or go to the Work With Me page on my website and let's connect. You don't have to choose between enjoying the moment, indulging in what feels good right now, and connecting with your family and doing the work to put more years lived in good health into your future. You can have both. You deserve both. Say no to binary choices. One of the things I feel we're getting more and more away from as a culture is appropriately trimming lamp wicks, carding wool, darning socks, outhouse repair, beating kids with belts, coming down with consumption. No, but I do think we've all gotten away from being willing to see and make an effort to try to understand nuance. Adam Grant in his book, Think Again, says, as consumers of information, we have a role to play in embracing a more nuanced point of view. When we're reading, listening, or watching, we can learn to recognize complexity as a signal of credibility. We can favor content and sources that present many sides of an issue rather than just one or two. When we come across simplifying headlines, we can fight our tendency to accept binaries by asking what additional perspectives are missing between these extremes. This applies when we're the one producing and communicating information too. New research suggests that when journalists acknowledge the uncertainties around facts on complex issues like climate change and immigration, it doesn't undermine their readers' trust. And multiple experiments have shown that when experts express doubt, they become more persuasive. When someone knowledgeable admits uncertainty, it surprises people and they end up paying more attention to the substance of the argument. End quote. Acknowledging uncertainty actually requires more confidence than declaring your certainty about something and explaining all the reasons why you're right, and also more humility. It seems like a bit of a paradox, which is our next topic, but when you're both confident and humble, people listen to and trust you more, not less. They might be less likely to discover you since rage and polarization get more immediate attention, but they will be able to feel that you care about trying to get it right. And when you're the one learning information, it's a good habit to always get into, to always try to seek out the other side of the issue, even when it seems like the other side is crazy. You're not well informed about something if you don't understand the other side, and be willing to acknowledge that there is usually nuance to every topic. Taking the time to try to understand the nuances of issues makes you a better person who also happens to be better informed and better prepared to make good decisions. But it also requires tolerating a little more confusion up front. Nuance. It's a sign that you're coming closer to the real truth. Our fifth way to use confusion to age better is to learn to enjoy paradoxes. According to Carl Jung, confusion can be a part of one of our most valuable spiritual possessions. The only way we can come near to comprehending the fullness of life. Whoa. That seems pretty important. The actual quote says, "The paradox is one of our most valuable spiritual possessions. Only the paradox comes anywhere near to comprehending the fullness of life." End quote. Paradoxes are inherently confusing. How can two contradictory things both be true? The dissonance that comes from a paradox is uncomfortable. It's way easier to choose comfort over courage and believe that only one side is true. But if we do that, we miss the opportunity to comprehend the fullness of life. Wah, wah. Being willing to sit in the confusion of embracing a paradox teaches us how to think deeper and stop oversimplifying everything. This requires us to lean into vulnerability. F. Scott Fitzgerald said, The test of a first-rate intelligence is the ability to hold two opposed ideas in the mind at the same time and still retain the ability to function. In case you forgot who F. Scott Fitzgerald is, like I did, he was an author born in St. Paul, Minnesota in 1896. His full name is Francis Scott Key Fitzgerald, which I never knew. He was named after his second cousin, 3 times removed, who wrote the Star-Spangled Banner. He wrote many short stories and 4 novels, the third of which was The Great Gatsby. Oh yeah, now I remember. So, do you pass his test for a first-rate intelligence? Can you embrace your confusion and hold two opposed ideas in your mind at the same time and still retain the ability to function? Can you be both spontaneous and disciplined, humble and confident? Can you accept the push and pull of contradictory beliefs and believe that they're both true? Making the brave choice to stay in the confusion, even though it doesn't feel good, helps you develop the power to understand who you fundamentally are. I've learned to love paradoxes more and more over the past 5 years or so. I get a little spark of interest whenever I hear something paradoxical. And I honestly enjoy it. This is true, and that is also true. How can that be? I honestly don't know. I can't wrap my mind around it. How cool. I'm a long way from comprehending the fullness of life, but I do think it helps me see some nuances I might have otherwise missed and more mindfully create my experience of life. But it is uncomfortable, so don't forget to suffer. Lastly, the 6th way to use confusion to make your life better is to celebrate confusion. What's your typical reaction to confusion? Most of us tend to have some kind of reaction like, ew, yucky. That's pretty normal, but what if we did something different? Apparently, if you go to a Tony Robbins event, or at least if you went to his Unleash the Power Within event whenever he was running those, he trained the audience so that if ever anyone stood up and said, I'm confused in whatever they were saying, the entire audience stood up and gave a rowdy standing ovation. Every time. I'm confused was a key phrase to listen for as an audience member and then stand up and cheer. He said that he did that because he wanted confusion to elicit a new automatic association, like having an automatic positive association to being told you won something. If we can train ourselves to get excited about being confused, we'll get excited about taking the opportunity to see the world from a different perspective and consider whether we want to leave our old ways of thinking. Tony says confusion is the gateway to clarity, so that's why it helps us unleash the power within. How might you get excited every time confusion comes up for you? You won't have an auditorium full of crazy screaming prospective firewalkers, but if instead of it being stressful to you, you can celebrate it within yourself, you'll probably start to dislike it less. Confusion really can be the gateway to clarity. It's a harder path than choosing to believe one side of a simple topic, but I promise that it will help you create a more meaningful life. I'm confused. Yay! This is annoying and also an opportunity for me to learn something that will make me a better version of myself. Being confused about what will make the biggest difference to your future self and her health is exciting. Being confused about the best place to start is a good thing. Not knowing whether you want to pursue hormone replacement therapy or what your body is trying to tell you about your current workout is great, as long as you stay in the zone of optimal confusion and use the confusion to help you get more mindful. Start looking for ways you can create new possibilities for yourself. Refuse either-or decisions. Seek out different points of view and make room for appreciating nuance. Confusion is your new best friend, along with envy. They can both make your future richer and your path clearer if you let them. Thank you so much for being here today. You are fabulous. Next week, we're going to talk about using nutrition to provide your body with the ingredients it needs to heal itself. Until then, don't forget to suffer, use confusion to get wiser, and don't be normal. Thank you so much for tuning into the Health Courage Collective podcast. I am truly honored that you have paid me the enormous compliment of your time and attention. I would be so grateful if you would share this podcast with someone you know and subscribe so you never miss an episode. This podcast is for entertainment and information purposes only. Statements and views on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Christina Hackett and producers, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse events by use of information contained herein. If you think you have a medical problem, consult a licensed physician.